Let's get this going.
We got to see it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Welcome everybody today. Special council meeting for budget in the new budgeting process. This isn't Carrie's problem. This is the clerk's problem, right? Because anything under this strong mayor's thing is a clerk issue, not legislative. Anyways, thank you everybody for coming in. Is there any, and yes, Councillor Shea is joining us online. And I believe our CEO is coming in online as well too. And as we speak, that's all you have to do is just ask and see, there she goes. There she was, there she goes. I hope she didn't hear that, Doug. Ashley, is the CEO going to join us or is she just flashing?
Good morning.
You going to stay with us now?
I am. I didn't know you wanted to see my face. I was happy to hide in the background. Good morning, everybody.
Well, very good. Thank you. Any declaration of pecuniary interest from any of the members? Also, seeing none, it can be declared at any time if it does arise. We're here to deal with the budget and how we're moving forward with it. And the one issue we have, and Ms. Mighton, this would be yours.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. So we're providing, looking for a bit of direction and high-level review of some of the pressures facing us as we move into our 2026 budget, and also to give you a snapshot of what the 10-year forecasts on the capital side potentially look like. We've provided a summary, a quick high-level summary on the operating side, which may look at about 5% increase. We're projecting an increase in wages and benefits, an estimate for insurance contracts, and then other items of materials and supplies that may be increasing. We don't have all the firm numbers by any means at this point, but just to give us a starting point of where we may be looking at on the operating side before we start to go in to present an actual full-fledged budget in there. And then we have the capital, the 10-year capital forecasts are shown in there at a high level, just a very summary. And then we've got, so I've sort of tried to highlight in the report what some of the pressures are facing the various departments. Public Works equipment is has a lot of pressure on it. In 2025, we deferred the 1-ton pickup and the new 1-ton truck, and 2026 will also be a greater year, which we normally buy a plow truck and then a grader and try to offset it with our transfers to reserves in the greater year. But it's still showing a potential 2% increase. And our roads projects, we've still got some significant projects with the South Street second phase in there and some pre-engineering for the Sadler Street storm sewer project. Water and sewer, it will be funded from the water sewer rates, but it is also facing some pressures with, again, the South Street project. We are applying for replacement of the steel standpipe. So if that grant were to hit, we still are responsible for, I think it's 27% of that. And then there is some sewer infiltration issues in Newstead. Those aren't funded from the tax levy, but they will require us to bring forward the rates, the water sewer rate changes in the near future, as well as we get looking at that. The library is looking at a parking lot upgrade for the Durham branch. The fire has the pickup truck, decontamination equipment and potential renovation of the existing police station to expand the Durham Fire Station into it. Recreation, we're looking at a bit of pressure there. Ice resurfacer for Normanby, as well as enhancements to the dressing rooms at the Normanby Arena. The Centennial Hall kitchen renovation is still on the books for 2026. And the Durham Arena, there's 5 exit doors that need replaced, and also the start of transfer to a reserve for a new ice resurfacer plan for that facility, potentially in 2027. So we're just kind of trying to get some direction from council on where their priorities are as we build the first draft of our 2026.
Thanks, Carrie. Looks very rosy, doesn't it? There's 2 recommendations in here. One is to receive this for information. The second one is dealing with the calendar. I'm wondering if we can get that one out of the way first. Amy and Carrie, looking through on this Strong Mayor's budget, whatever you want to call it, our timelines just don't line up with the timelines that need to be in there for that. So if we could move, I guess I'm going for the low-lying fruit, because low-hanging, this one would be pretty easy if we just move that at this point in time. That'll get that out of the way before we get down into the nitty-gritty. Tom?
I will move that, sir.
Very good. So that's the first recommendation. Is number 2, direct staff to amend the 2025 West Grey Council meeting calendar to accommodate Strong Mayor budget timelines by rescheduling November 25th, 2025 special council meeting to November 12th, 2025. Sir Townsend will second that. Any questions, comments on that? Let's get our alignment going. Jeff, go ahead. Councillor Shea?
Yes, thank you and good morning. Can we get an overview of the all of the scheduling milestones vis-a-vis the budget as we go to approve this?
Jamie, I think you've got some of those dates. Go ahead.
Certainly, and through your miracles. In Strong Mayor municipalities, the mayor has the duty to propose the budget by February 1st of the budget year. This proposal initiates the formal budget discussions. After receiving the proposed budget and within 30 days, council can pass a resolution to amend the budget. The 30-day amendment period can be shortened by resolution of council if council so chooses to do so. If no resolution to amend the proposed budget is passed within the timeline, the proposed budget is deemed to be adopted. So that's more or less why we need to shorten that, or reschedule rather, the November 25th meeting, because if the budget meeting in October takes place and we don't have another meeting scheduled within that 30-day window, then the budget's deemed adopted and council wouldn't have any opportunity to make any further amendments if they so choose to. If a resolution to amend the proposed budget is made within the timeline, the mayor can, within 10 days after the 30-day timeline, veto the amendment. If a veto occurs, the mayor must, on the day of the veto, provide the veto document to each member of council and to myself. The veto document must include the reason for the veto. Should the veto not be overridden, then the amendment is deemed not to have passed. If a veto is made, council may override the veto within 15 days after the 10-day veto period with a 2/3 vote of council. Each year, council may pass a resolution to shorten the 15-day override period. If the override is successful, the amendment shall be deemed to be passed by council. After the expiry of the time period for council to override the mayor's veto, the proposed budget is deemed to be adopted by the municipality. So there's a lot of if this, then that situations at play here. So being cognizant and aware of the timing of these meetings is very important moving forward.
So to clarify, in our case, you mentioned the February 1st deadline. We're not using that. Can you tell us what day the budget will be presented and when the 30-day window ends?
Certainly, yes. So the 30 days or I'll just start with February 1st. So the mayor has an obligation or a duty to propose the budget by February 1st each year. If the mayor chooses not to do that or the budget isn't presented by then the whole process is turned back to council. I suppose there could be benefits and drawbacks to that. However, one of the drawbacks being that the budget process is delayed by several months if that route is chosen. But with respect to the timing, our first scheduled budget meeting is on October 28th, meaning that the agenda would be published by October 24th, 2025. On that day, technically, council is in possession of the mayor's budget, so the 30-day clock starts there, meaning that if the budget meeting on November 25th is not rescheduled, then that 30-day window starts and the clock starts ticking, and we wouldn't have time to have council make those proposed amendments later on. If there are amendments that take place on October 28th and the mayor vetoes them, for example, then there's a certain time frame with respect to that as well. So again, by moving that date, we just ensure that there's adequate time for council to make amendments and then deal with any potential vetoes and overrides should the need arise.
And so between October 24th, when we will have received the budget because it's published, and this November meeting, will there be additional budget deliberation steps, or does it all have to happen within one step?
So through the mayor, there are two steps, and that's why we're proposing rescheduling that November 25th meeting. So I suppose if council is satisfied on October 28th and there's no amendments, there's no vetoes, there's no overrides, then the budget process would more or less conclude. And at the end of that time frame, the budget would be deemed adopted. However, thinking that there may be something or a need to revisit, we're proposing moving that November 25th meeting to November 12th to ensure that council has a second opportunity to look at the budget before it's finalized.
And sorry to be such a pest here, but if council or a councillor wanted to propose amendments, what would the process be? Would they have to do notice of motion, or so like assuming nobody's going to have any radical ideas on November 28th, any changes that council or councillors want to introduce would have to be introduced on November 12th and either passed or not passed to operate within this process. So do I have that right, that that's the total number of steps involved and our only opportunity?
Through Mayor Eccles, I would say yes. There would not be a need for notice of motion, as these motions would be taking place as part of the regularly scheduled budget meeting. So no notice of motion would be required. If after the second budget meeting, should it be rescheduled to November 12th, if council still would like to make an amendment, then council has the right to request a special meeting of council to deal with that outside of these timelines. So there's always an opportunity. It's just figuring out the best way to do that if the need should arise.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Everybody good with that? From the mayor's position, we're still looking at this as being a team-oriented thing, not a dictatorial process. All right. Call the question, and all those in favor of changing the date. Any opposed? That's carried. Okay. Carry on the second one. And what this meeting is really for is to, at the high level, is there anything that section that we want to deal with, feel from a personal level where we need to make adjustments or give direction to staff? Or the mayor, I guess, as it's the mayor's budget now. Thanks, Carrie, for giving me that wink. So we've got the report. Is there any questions on the direction we're going on right now, or does somebody feel this is a time to speak up of where we should, whether we're putting the focus in the right spot or in the wrong spot, or questions to any spot right here? Anybody? Counselor Townsend, Doug.
Just wondering, we had some, what would you say, some occurrences in this fiscal year, 2025 here, that were unbudgeted. Whether legal expenses or frazzle ice. How is that stuff incorporated into the budget? Does it show up somewhere within the budget? And again, when it comes to the, something like frazzle ice, if that's going to be an ongoing thing, because they won't put the boards in at the dam, but if that's going to be that could happen every year, that could happen every 3 years, 5 years, is it something we should be budgeting for in the future?
Through you, Mayor, for the legal that we've had, we were using some of our growth from 2025 when we were reviewing that budget to help offset some of those one-time legal expenses that we had and any potential surplus that we might have at the end of the year. The flood control, that is something that we're going to need to re-examine and get a feel for. At the end of this year, it'll become part of our surplus or deficit for 2025. But what is our expectation? Was it that one-off weather event, or is it going to be the new normal? That is going to be one of the challenges that we'll be facing when we do the fulsome budget preparation.
And I can say that there may be a bit of an ease on conservation, and some conversations I've had back and forth as being a member of the board at Saugeen. The effect that happened and some of the operations of the dam, seeing as the boards can go in good weather, it's a good thing. Boards go in and good weather in the fall if they stay in. I'm sure just why. But there are some conversations on the operations of the boards to hopefully alleviate that problem moving forward. I think our CEO might want to make a comment as well too.
Good
Any
morning.
babies crying in the background?
No, I'm
we're
isolated
good.
away, but I would love if there were. I'd be happy to
yeah,
show you
you'd
her
show her
smiling
off.
face. Of course I would. Thank you for allowing me to participate remotely today. I just wanted to speak briefly on the frazzle ice. The treasurer and I did chat about this as well. Given the anomaly we had this year, or not anomaly, we don't really know whether it's directly correlated to the board removal, though we all have our assumptions. We thought we would, and given what's going on at the Conservation Authority and perhaps even at the province, we thought we would assess what happens this coming winter as well. And if we see a recurrence, then obviously this is something we would have to think about long term. Additionally, I think, as you are aware, we are working with SVCA to see if we can seek some funding to do some environmental assessments to look at options on how we handle this. So it is on our radar. It was so uncertain. We didn't anticipate being able to accurately predict anything for 2026, and hope against hope that perhaps it was an anomaly this year and we won't incur any additional expenses next year.
Okay. Is that fine, Doug? What's that? Go ahead.
Yeah, it is. Just I guess to just wondering, and as you say, as our treasurer has noted, we were able to kind of accommodate some of these things through growth and potential surpluses that we might have had before. We were able to absorb them. So I guess just something going forward for council, I guess, just if we know we've kind of got some of that money when it comes to some of these things, I guess to coin a phrase, if we have a slush fund, then maybe we can work our way through this.
Carrie?
Through you, Mayor, I wouldn't say that we have a slush fund. Growth has now, through your bridge financing strategy, been to get dedicated towards funding bridges. We did that. We used growth this in the 2025 budget on purpose because we knew we had some legal. And so, and it's, we never know if there's a surplus or deficit at the end of the year, but assuming that we spend all of the funds on the various items that we're anticipating, there likely wouldn't be a surplus. So I don't know that I would say you have a safety net by any means for unbudgeted items.
Okay, thanks. Good, Carrie. Joyce, Councillor New.
Thank you. And Councillor Townsend was touching on this, but like we do have knowns like with doing that Bridge 55 and 55, like your I didn't notice it, but does your going into 2026 show these costs that are already being spent but being financed in 2026? Like, is it just the bridge, or are we looking at other happenings or occurrences that did happen in 2025? Thank you.
Sure.
Currently, the only approved 2026 commitment has been that N55 structure. So that will be, we did move a few things around in our bridge financing strategy to accommodate that, but that is basically been pre-approved for 2026. But at this point, that's the only commitment that council has.
So just to be clear, Ms. Mighton, we would have had a projection of how much capital was in that 2026, a few months ago when you did that bridge financing. But in our 2026 budget, that number will be 260, is already committed there. So what is in there is from your report a couple of months ago is 260 some odd dollars, $260,000. Jeff, don't think it's that much. 260 would be off of that right away.
Yeah, we sort of shifted around some pre-engineering and transferred to a bridge reserve from that financing strategy and committed to an actual project instead of that pre-engineering part of it.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Go ahead, Joyce.
Thank you. I'm just curious too, like we pulled the 300,000 that was put in reserve to finance the bridge N56. So we had financed in the reserve 800,000. Would that be moving forward again for 2026, another 800,000, or do we lose that 300,000? Like, would that be like a set kind of thing now in our budgets? I don't know how that works, like with the levy and how that works when we're setting aside monies for reserve.
Yeah, so part of that bridge financing strategy, there's various years where we're saving up some money, and then other years where we're doing a large structure. We're banking some of the grant money, the OSIF or CCBF funds. We've put some money into reserve ourselves if it's not a construction year, but it's a pre-engineering year. But so that all comes back and forth. The tax levy impact from that bridge financing strategy was we started with 807,000 from the tax levy, and we have allocated 1% growth of $140,000 approximately to be added to that 807 each year for the next 10 years in order to be able to continue with funding those structures in various ways throughout that time frame. But so that 807 from the strategy grows to 947 because we're taking that growth from 2025's growth and allocating it towards bridges in 2026.
Councillor Hutchison. Doug?
So I presume we're going to get into maybe some more details here, but just on a higher level. So given that operating comes in at 5%, and then which is great if we could keep it at 5%, but then on top of that, we have 4.5 or almost 5% in capital. So between the two of them, we're looking at almost 10%. So is that, I remember the days when we were looking at 2 and 3 and 4 and 5% overall budget. Is that the new norm that we're looking at now, that we're looking at almost double digit budgets going forward for the next 10 years?
It depends on council's priorities, and if you want to decrease your level of service, change your level of service, stop doing things. But if you want to continue to maintain and operate as we do today, we're hitting that infrastructure wall of big things are needing to be completed, and we've got to raise the funds for it. Or, those are some of those decisions of, if something breaks, like the bridges, do we leave it closed because we can't fund it? Is it closed permanently? So it's kind of those discussions of, how do we want to continue to move forward? Can we afford to do all the things we do now? Is there other ways we can do them? But it'll depend on the priorities set by council of the day going forward. But if we were to, as an example, this is showing that 4.5%. So if we want a different target, that's the feedback we need, because we can present you with what we won't get done, what won't happen, and it's going to push it off, similar to what we did in 2025. We deferred the pickup and the 1 ton. So those didn't go away. They just got pushed along. So you can see that there's still going to be pressures every year for the next 10 years. And it's just when we slot things in. So sometimes just canceling it, we've got to figure out where it's going to get slotted into, because it may still need to be done.
So the short answer is yes. Basically, like I understand where you're coming from. It's just, how do we sell that to the public? That yes, I don't think there's anybody out there would say, oh, we want less services. We want less fire. We want less police. We want less bridge work done. So I think it's our job is, how do we sell that as going forward? It looks like this is what we need to maintain what we got. And if we wanted to do anything on top of that, it's gonna be higher. So I think that's important message, that it seems to be almost a sign of the times that we're looking at, high, 8, 9, 10% budgets going forward. Unless somebody has some magic ways of getting it down. I don't know. I don't see it, but as you go forward, I don't know if you're going to look at the capital budget, but I wouldn't mind just an explanation of how this all works in terms of looking at the numbers. Like, I don't quite get it, but are we going to talk about that here this morning, or do you want to answer the question now, just basically overall? I'm sure we're going.
I'm certain that we can. Look at, oh, she was there, she's gone, she's back. Michelle.
Good morning. I will just pop in it because I can't find my raise hand on here, so I'll pop in if I hoping to be able to just comment. And to Councillor Hutchinson's comment about, is this what the future looks like? I think this is part of the reason we have come forward with this 10-year forecast rather than one-off annual, but I think painting the picture of what we are anticipating over the next 10 years is going to be critical for council to be able to help prioritize where they think dollars should be spent, because as we know, we have finite dollars within our realm to utilize. I should comment that this is not a problem unique to West Grey. Most municipalities across Ontario are hitting the same wall with aging infrastructure. It is, I'm going to say, particularly apparent in rural municipalities where we have large infrastructure geography with a relatively small population base for which to try to tackle these problems. So that's why we wanted to give you a chance to see the full picture. And I think one of the aha moments perhaps was when we were doing the bridge financing strategy and modeling back in March. There was a council member who commented about how do we make future councils committed to this bridge financing strategy. And as we all know, you can't commit a future council to it. And understanding what the other competing pressures are and other lines within our business that might need to be addressed, I think is critically important, not just for this council, but for all future councils, so that as you're making decisions, you can provide some direction on where you want to invest your money and what priorities may need to fall lower down the ranking. So there's no magic answer is the bottom line, is unless we win that funding lottery that nobody seems to be able to win from the province.
I guess that brings a question into that. When you look at the 10-year capital forecast in 2025, our total financing is 13 million, 13.1 there. You can see it drops to 4 million. Part of that being the 6.5 million we'll have to borrow for the police station. But even in that, 6.5 million off of 13 still only brings it down to 6.5, give or take. There's a $2.5 million difference in there. Can you kind of explain that one, Carrie? Or help, because you see the tax levy doesn't change that much, but user fees aren't included in that. A couple of other things, just for clarity, please.
Yeah, so the user fees that, just so that we didn't confuse the tax levy with the water sewer rates, I've pulled those out on the go forward, but those water sewer expenses also are showing, not showing up on those 10-year forecasts. But yeah, without the user fees in that 13 million and expense, then we're at 12.5. The borrowing, we're down to 5.9. We do have deferred OCIF revenue. We banked some of it for Bridge 44. So we had carried some of that forward. So that was another $589,000 that we carried forward. And some of that through the bridge financing strategy, we showed that that was part of our plan, was using the funding in 1 year, banking it in the next year, when it's our construction year, and dedicating some of that to get caught up on the bridges. So that is part of it as well. There was a little bit, the CCBF, which is the former gas tax fund. The same thing kind of happened with that. We had 847,000. That was, we used that on the road side primarily. But that our annual allotment is closer to the 400,000. So we had banked a couple years of CCBF funding in that allocation as well.
Okay. Go ahead. I'll get to you, Jeff.
So just looking at the 10-year capital forecast, just to clarify a couple of things. So, sort of understanding of it better now, but so admin, for example, 2025, 4 million for admin. In 2026, 10,000. So you're projecting that each year the admin's going to go up by 10,000 for the next 10 years. Is that what you're saying there?
Not go up by 10,000, but that's all that the capital requirement would be. So it's not the increase, and typically what that is, are in the admin side, our biggest, expenses are computers. So it's putting money away in reserve for computers and then spending $40,000 in it, when they are out of date, and using that reserve so that the net effect is still just, the, $10,000. So that's any of those expenses aren't the increase. That's just that is the actual expenditures that we're projecting in there. In 2025, we had part of the police station in there. That's the big $4 million there. And that we had raised $176,000 on the capital side in 2025 of tax levy for the police station, but that money in 2026 and going forward moves to the operating side to pay back the loan so that our loan amount is up there. So I've tried to back that out a bit just so it didn't skew the numbers just on a high level piece.
So another example, looking at the police, so 90,000 looks like each year. So to me, that speaks for a new police car, which seems to be so that's the only capital expense that our police are predicting for the next 10 years. Is that realistic? Like there aren't going to be other capital expenses? Maybe the chief will have to speak to that. I don't know.
To answer your question, we do not anticipate, we have worked into our budget what's coming up. We have been very diligent in replacing our equipment. So right now it looks like we will only need police cars. Everything else we have, if we look at the life expectancy, we just purchased new breathalyzer equipment this year out of our reserves. So we are looking at we're at a position now where all we need to do is update our cars. Our computer systems have already been worked into our budget for replacements. And every other use of force equipment and things like that have already been worked into our operating budgets for replacements. We're not digging into the capital constantly. In the capital, all we do is get 1.5 police cars a year. We put some money aside so we can deal with costs, but those are our costs coming forward. And I can say, as I'm retiring, and Chief Designate White would say the same thing. We've had many discussions with this with the treasurer, and that will be our only ask for capital.
Councillor Shea. Jeff?
Yes, thank you. Quick question to Carrie. Something that Doug said early on in the meeting. If we have a 5% increase in operating and we have a 5% increase in capital, does that not equal a 5% increase in the budget?
So when I'm showing the 5% increase, that's the additional tax levy required. So we would need that if it was 5 and 5, 10% additional tax levy requirement.
Okay, I guess my math skills aren't as good as yours. Maybe I'll talk to you about this offline another time.
Yep, sure. Yep. And that's sort of basing it on right now, 140 to 145,000 is 1% of a tax levy increase. That, will possibly grow a little bit each year, but that's what it is currently. So just for very high level, we've used that. So every $140,000 would be another 1% on the tax levy.
Okay, thank you.
Joyce?
Thank you. And again, looking at the 10-year capital forecast, my interest is the roads. In 2025, 2.4, is allocated, or sorry, 1.15 is allocated for roads. Is this, this question's for our Director of Infrastructure, to the rehabilitation of the roads in Durham and the new roads and so on and so forth? Does that reflect like our hard top for our rural roads? And moving forward, I think anyone driving on our roads will testify that they are crumbling. I would like to see, and I know we're already at almost 5% increase in our capital, but I would love to see 2 kilometers of road, I don't care where in West Gray, but 2 kilometers of roads rehabilitated so we can start getting on top of this, that it's such a need. And I think it would justify to our taxpayers knowing that we are taking that money for rural roads somewhere in West Gray moving forward in the next 10 years. Could you make comment on that? And how much it would, say like a 0.5, how much monies would that take in to help rehabilitate 2 kilometers of road?
Yes, good morning and through your worship, thank you for the question. 2025 and 2026 are being driven by the South Street project. For 2027, yes, we intend to go to Elmwood is our proposed road project. In each of those years, there is also 400,000 suggested for surface treatment, which is done predominantly in rules over the course of the 10 years. After Elmwood, we'll be looking at things. There's an Artemisia Glenelg town line that is it's getting a little rough too. So after 2026, yeah, we do go back to road rehabilitation within the rules. So specifically, if we use 2027 in Elmwood, it would be a pulverized and pave and some A gravel to reset the crown. Your concern is fair, and we've tried to incorporate that in 2027 moving forward.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Again, though, if we took 2 kilometers of roads, give me a ballpark figure. What's it gonna cost us to go in and rehabilitate? I'm sure our own men could do those sorts of jobs. I'm thinking, I know maybe you feel that they're already maxed with their manpower with what they do through the spring, summer. Well, I know spring they'd be terribly busy. They'd be busy anyway. But just how much are we looking at if we raise it 0.5 with the tax base to rehabilitate roads starting in 2026?
So for 2 kilometers, trying to use internal courses where possible, you're in the $400,000 to $500,000 range.
Then my question would be to the Director of Finance, and would a 0.5 look after that in the tax base?
No.
Right now we have 400,000 in for single and double surface. But yeah, that's the kind of direction we're looking for today. Is that a priority that you want us to focus on, is putting more funds to the roads? And if that's another $50,000, $75,000, what is it, a percentage wise? Is that the direction you want us to reallocate and focus funds or increase the funding there? And then we'll bring that back in those detailed budget draft. But that's the kind of stuff we're looking for today. Right now we have, in this projection, we've got 400,000 in there for single double surface treatment in that. And then there's 820 for the South Street project.
So just to kind of answer your question, Jay, 145,000 is about 1%. So 0.5 would be about 70,000, 75,000. And if it's 200,000 a K, 0.5 doesn't quite get there. But go ahead.
Sometimes though I feel when you're putting surface treatment or double float, high float, whatever, sometimes that's just a Band-Aid when you still got your problem underneath the road, like that needs to be rehabilitated. So those are concerns that need to be addressed.
Mhm. Okay. Doug?
To Councillor Noon's point, should we be developing a road strategy the same we did with the bridge strategy? And then it's laid out for the taxpayers and future councils to say, this is what, what it's going to cost us and what's been set aside. Just a thought.
So to your point, Carrie, on an annual basis, or you or Jeff, there's about 400,000 in there, has been in there on maintenance, tar and chip, and some of that is to increase tar and chip. Am I correct? And about 800,000 on construction. So there's about 1.2 million in there that's gone in for road reconstruction and or single or double high flow. We really don't have anything in there for pavement on an annual basis, do we?
In 2027, we have maintained the 400,000 for the single double surface treatment. Jeff mentioned Elmwood reconstruction. I'm not sure what the type of surface. Jeff can mention that. And then we had Sadler Street, Rock Street to the dead end, 500,000.
So Elmwood specifically would be a pulverize, add some additional A gravel to reset the crown and then pave it with an HL4. Sadler Street, that is the result of the flooding that's been occurring in that area, and that would be the beginning of a construction project to alleviate the flooding that's occurring. It's being driven by a storm sewer work, but yeah, that would be new HL3 and HL4 in that area.
Well, that's Sadler Street from Elgin East, or how far?
We've divided it up over multiple years. So the pressure point right now is Rock Street to the dead end. And then we would move west one block at a time. The design work would be done for the entire section till you got to essentially Garifraxa, but we would just propose construction based on block by block.
Okay, anything else? Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, just when we're talking about roads, what about Mulock? Is it built into your 10-year plan there at all?
Yes, it is. Concession 6 to concession 8, and then concession 8 to Crawford. And then after that, we will reprioritize from Gray Road 4 down to concession 6.
And when's that? 2030 or 2042?
2031 and 2032. Similar to the bridge strategy, once we get into some of the detail stuff, those will ebb and flow depending on where the demands are and if the priority changes for council, we can shift. But based on some of the information, we've kind of tried to set what the priorities are, looking at it out of today's lens. But as development changes, priorities of council change, they could be, swapped out. Instead of this $500,000 project, it could be a different 500,000. But similar to the bridges, where if one breaks, we'll reprioritize when the timing of a certain bridge may be. But there's always another road or section that can be slotted in if the priority changes.
Two things that and this is more into the operation side of it. On the projections, how many FTEs do we have in here, or how many do we have going forward in the next 5 years? And I'll start with policing. As the population continues to increase, our cops to pop obviously will increase. You have a projection at all, Chief?
Right now, our present budget, we are able to grow by 2. There is no expectation that we will be looking at any more officers for the next 5 years. That will bring us up to complement. However, after the 5 years and all the development is done that is proposed, that will probably increase our police to population ratio significantly. We'll be back into the 1 officer for about 850 people to 900, depending on the growth and how big it gets, which will put us back into the situation where a number of years ago that we had to hire 3 members to bring it back down to in the range, which is the norm of about 1 for every 700 to 725 people in the community.
Well, Goodsky gets home and Newstead will need that earlier. Sorry, that was kind of a callous remark. Anybody else on the FTEs? That was just the police. FTEs across the corporation. You hiring more volunteers there, Phil? Pretty. Admin, rec, building department? Nobody wants to jump? Gary?
The 2025 budget included HR consulting. So with the proposal that once we had all of our policies and procedures sort of up to date, then we may have some type of a HR type position. What that flushes out and looks like, we haven't fully developed, but that would be something on the admin side, which was projected in your 2025 planning for that. The planning department, depending what happens with the county, there may be changes there. Otherwise, I think most of it's probably fairly stable at this point.
Ms. Harris, I see you're back on. Do you want to comment?
Thank you. If I may, you mentioned recreation as well. I think what we need to remember is that, we're managing at this point to deliver on the current service level with the staff we have. But if service levels change or there are more requirements, and Councillor Noon even mentioned about roads, and depending what the road priorities are moving forward, she had suggested that, could our internal staff do it? Well, maybe, but we also are getting more and more pressures for compliance, et cetera, maintaining minimum maintenance standards, which we've got to be very cognizant of. So those are things that are always in flux. We're really trying to maintain the level with servicing, but if council suddenly decided that they wanted our arenas open, for instance, more hours, and what does that weigh out with revenue generation? So we will continue to bring that forward, but at this point, we are projecting sort of relative stability within staffing, but as the police chief alluded to as well, with growth, we may need to look at that because more population means more pressures on municipal services.
Okay. The second question I have from the chair is in 2026, going to be a major change, or could be a major change in our garbage pickup. How is that being addressed in this budget? Or what are we looking at? I guess I'm looking at Carrie or Jeff.
Yep.
If Carrie wants to jump, you're safe, Jeff.
Yeah. So that is something that we don't know of. We have added some dollars in there on the contract side, but until that really gets flushed out, we're not sure how it's going to be delivered, the garbage collection, how it's going to be, or garbage waste management, how it's going to be handled. We're going out for that RFP to give us your thoughts and your ideas. So hopefully we'll have a better idea once we bring forward the whole fulsome 2026 budget. But at this point, we did just show an increase on the contract side in this high level draft, knowing that something's going to change there. We just don't know what it is and how much our ability will be to control those costs, but it is anticipated that there'll be some kind of a change in that landfill.
You're indicating an increase in our waste pickup because the Ontario government has said that we'll take the recycling from you, but it's going to cost you this much more over here. I look forward to seeing what we come up with. Is there some solutions in there? I think there are.
Yeah, and
Some of-
part of what we've put in here, that change occurs halfway through the year, potentially. Our contract goes to July 1st, our existing contract. So the impact will be, we're anticipating would be a half a year, whatever that change does look like.
Mhm. And as waste management continues to pick up at 50% capacity, should be able to gain something between now and then. Especially over the last weekend of Forest Creek, at least. It's not paying much attention. Doug, go ahead.
Just to go along with that, if you noticed, I read the latest email that apparently the producers are balking a little bit on the whole system, and they're, you know, it's going to cost them so much more money. So now they're looking at backing off, picking up some of the product that they were supposed to pick up. So it's a bit of a mess, and it's going to be a while before ultimately I think it's going to end up costing us more money, you know, rather than costing the producers money. So yeah, it's a mess. Anyways, I do have a question for fire if you get a chance.
Go ahead.
Oh, there. So Chief, just curious about the fire in terms of this year, it says 1.03 million. Talked about renovating when the police move out of their building. What kind of cost, what are you looking at there in terms of renovations, and is that built in? I look like it starts out by 300, 400,000 and it drops down to a couple 100,000 and so on. Can you just give us some detail on that?
Yeah, I was asked for 52 years in a row. First thing you'd have to do is tear out the property room that they put in there, the brick room that's actually in the truck bay or car bay, whatever you want to call it there. It needs 2 new overhead doors. The overhead door on the fire side actually fell off a couple weeks ago. I had a guy come in and repair it. He said those doors are 50 years old, they're done. The tracks are worn out. Painting and stuff like that is, as far as labor goes, our own guys are willing to do the work. The basement, we wanted to gut it and just use it for storage. So that's basically it in a nutshell. And whatever else you run into. The roof on the building is a new roof. Fire hall and police station were done at the same time. And there's in the back of my mind, I'm thinking there's a 50-year guarantee on it. It was done through Ontario Works. Pete Nolan Sound had got the contract, and they come back once and fixed one leak. And I'm not sure if there's any leaks on the police side or not, but it's still a warranty on that roof. So, and possibly the second year doing some siding on the old cement block and brickwork on the police side, which was supposed to be done a few years back, but things came up and we actually used that reserve we had for other stuff. So, yeah, that's what we're looking at anyways.
Okay, so you have that all built into your budget so far, type thing? Yep.
Some of the pressure on repurposing that building, if possible, is also to address some of the decontamination requirements under the health and safety, to have a separate area for the gear storage, instead of on the bay floor, some showers, like, you know, so that's, so that they can decontaminate before they leave the station, and that type of thing. But Phil can probably speak to that more, but I think some of that is also built into some of those, repurposing of that station as well.
Yeah, so what we're looking at is where the offices are now in the fire hall, that'll become a gear room. So the gear will be off the floor. We're hoping to somehow do that. The other 2 fire stations too, we haven't figured it out yet. Under the new presumptive legislation being cancers for firefighters, there's a whole gamut of stuff and regulations that we have to meet. We've been working on that as far as operating guidelines go. I've spent a few weeks on that. There's a new fire station not too far from here, and they put in a cancer claim, and Ministry of Labor was there a month later and did a complete inspection, and they did get they did have some violations even in that new station. You're supposed to have a dirty side, so when you come back from a fire, all the dirty stuff's here, gets cleaned before it goes back on the trucks on the clean side of the station. Our fire hall in Durham right now, because we're between two buildings, we don't have the room to do that. So that's the idea of moving over. Everybody's supposed to shower before they go home after a fire call or any kind of a medical call where there might have been contact with any fluids or anything. We have one shower in each fire station. The new fire hall down the road here has 12 showers. So I don't know how we would ever overcome that. And they use them. They have rules. They have to use them. They have to have a change of clothes at the hall now. So when they come back, these clothes, their day clothes come off and they get washed at the fire hall before they're taken home. We have a washing machine, a commercial washing machine at each fire hall. We are now required to have a lack of a better word, a domestic washing machine like you'd have at home and a dryer to clean things that should not be going in with the turnout gear. So this is all stuff that I worked into my 10-year plan. It's not going to happen 1 year, obviously, but as long as we're working towards it, I think we can keep the, Ministry of Labor away from us for a while. Or if they do come, if we do make a claim, we're working towards it, and that might ease any issues we have with them. So, but if there's enough room there, I can make it work. It's not perfect, but we can do what we can do, right?
Go ahead, Tom.
Mr. Mayor, and the same thing applies for Elmwood, that we've got a significant challenge there, and exactly what the chief just spoke to. It's something we can't just be pushing off, because it needs to be done, and it's in our, I think we're bringing it forward, but Gary's well aware of it as well, but just let's not lose sight of that. And it's just, again, what the chief just said, there's a lot of rules and regulations, and we're certainly going to have to make sure that we're compliant with that. So I just want to make sure that I bring that forward with that same comment. Thank you.
And just the other thing I want to add that is we've been following our neighbors down the road here. They seem to be leading the whole neighborhood on what needs to be done. And here's the big one is when they're done at a fire, they cannot get back in the fire truck with their turnout gear on. That turnout gear has to go in a garbage bag, and they have to put Tyvek suits on to get back in the truck to go to the hall. Like there's a cost right there. Like Tyvek suit, you use it once, you throw it out. So you get 20 calls in a week and you get 20 people out. I mean, it's gonna get expensive. So I don't know what we're gonna do. We thought about even buying everybody a pair of like co-op type coveralls, just ordinary coveralls that they can keep rolled up in a little duffel bag and use that. But there's several different ways we could do it. But those would have to be also washed when they come back from a call, because once they're in the truck, we have to deep clean the truck. If it's a working fire now, everything comes out, all the equipment gets washed. I get hours and hours of work after a fire. It's gotten ridiculous, but this is what the new laws are. So
Just, listening to all this, and I know, I think our CAO had mentioned it too, and Jeff maybe had with the roads, compliance for the province. Is there any way to put a number on what compliance is costing us as a municipality when you hear all these different things, how much it's adding to the tax levy to be compliant with, this stuff with the fire department? That's just, it's amazing. And people, to Councillor Hutchinson's point, explaining to we're having double-digit tax increases every year. Well, how much of that is totally out of council's control? That we have to, how much of everyone's budget, whether it's police, fire, roads, whatever, what percentage of their budget is just used up on compliance to accommodate the people in downtown Toronto that don't seem to understand that we exist anyway, but that's a whole other story.
Who wants to take a stab at that question? Oh, thank you, Madam CEO.
Thank you.
Michelle.
I would like to speak to this. I just want to be cautious. There's compliance that we totally agree. I would like to call it, there's also an awful lot of downloading from the province that we as municipalities are bearing the brunt of. And I do think if we could find some way to measure that, change is going to be an important piece of the storytelling. Related to fire particularly, and I want to be careful around talking about compliance being downloaded from the province when it relates to the safety of our firefighters. I mean, these standards that are being placed on our firefighters, and it's health and safety. And I think it's really important. We are more aware than ever of the risks our firefighters and our police services take. So we need to think about that. And I don't want to minimize that. I think the other thing that Mayor Eccles has talked about a lot is service levels and the impact of growth. And even related to the money projected in here related to fire and utilizing the old police station as a potential space for expansion. It's like a used car. We need to at some point determine, is that the best investment for our money? I think short term it perhaps is. It'll help us make some improvements, but we're going to have to look at growth moving forward and what level of service we want to provide. And I'm not saying minimize those service levels, but are there other ways or more efficient ways of delivering that service, or partnerships or service agreements? And I don't think any of us have the answer yet, but internally we have been talking about potentially looking at a growth management strategy, because growth goes beyond just the infrastructure of our roads, et cetera. But what are the impact on our recreational services and our fire and our police services and our library services, so that we can start to look ahead on how we might manage those pressures, and also what levels of services we want to provide, even with such things as waste management. So there's a lot in there, but to Councillor Townsend's point, I've made a note here. I am going to see if there's any way we can start to look at documenting the downloading impacts on our budget, because I think that is an important factor that we and other municipalities are left to deal with.
Okay. Seeing as we're on fire, in a 10-year capital plan, Chief Swartz, how much have you got in here that if we continue to go in this direction, that it's no longer a part-time, it's no longer a volunteer, that we're being pushed totally towards a full-time fire department? Seeing as over the last 15 years, the calls for service that the fire department fires to suppress fire is 10% of the calls? Would I be wrong on saying that?
I would say maybe closer to 20%, maybe. A lot of them there's medical calls and all that stuff we get called to. There's a lot of unnecessary calls, but unfortunately when somebody calls 911, it's kind of hard to say, no, we're not coming. But in the 21, 22 years I've been your chief, I've seen, I would say, a shot out of the air, 80% increase on how we do things now, and downloads in the province and regulations, training. That's this new training thing that came out about 4, 5, 6 years ago. I mean, and we've done good. I gotta commend the firefighters in West Gray for stepping up to the plate, and taking courses, but I mean, the Fire 1 and Fire 2 course alone is over 300 hours. And then you had to write fire college exam, and then you got to write AS&E, which is to get your certificate. And in there, there's courses that we have hazmat awareness, then we have to do hazmat operations. We don't do hazmat operations. We bring in a contractor for that, but they still have to be trained. To train one firefighter from a recruit up to where you can have them working on scene. We've done good this year. We've done it in a matter of 9 months, maybe since last September, maybe a little longer than that. We got one more course in September, the hazmat operations. And we've done it in-house, which we had to get fire college approval to do. So we've trained, I'm going to say 9 new recruits. But to get each one of those through, get them outfitted with their turnout gear and training is likely around $20,000 a person. And that's a shot in the dark. When I started as chief, I was buying turnout gear for $1,800. I bought 2 sets last year, it cost me over $8,000 for 2 sets. That's coat and pants. That's not the helmet. Helmets went from being $300 to up there $600 a piece now, and they only have a 10-year life unless they get broken or damaged. Then you got to replace them. Same with, we've gone from rubber boots to we're changing over to leather boots now, and that's almost $600 for a set of boots. It's just gone ridiculous. Does that answer any of your questions?
Co-op still selling rubber boots at $25. Isn't it?
Yeah, but a pair of entry gloves are used to get for $120, and now go $250.
I guess to my point, volunteer firemen today on any floor are as well trained as any full-time fireman in the city of Owen Sound.
And that's the problem. I'm losing firefighters to the city of Toronto. I've had one go to Brampton. I've had one join Toronto. I got other ones that are applying in other spots because we're training them. They now have the provincial qualifications. They can go anywhere. So,
But they only work 7 days a month, so they should be able to put in 28 for us. Oh, or have the unions,
we
cut
could
that off
change, we
again.
could change the whole thing here, you know, we could just hire 20 full-time firefighters and be done with it.
Would it be cheaper than running 3 stations?
I can't answer that this time. I'd have to crunch some numbers for you. I doubt it.
Would it be more cost effective? Let you run some numbers.
I don't
till
think
October.
so. I don't think so. I think we'll stay with the status quo.
All right. We've had one individual leave me. I want to take a 5-minute recess here and come up with some other questions. Maybe we come back at 20 after. That'll give us. I'm going to ask for a recess anyways. I'm taking Okay, call the meeting back to order. Thank you, everyone. We've had a pretty good discussions. Are we down to where to, Ms. Mighton is looking for, and the directors, managers are looking for, where do they put their focus? To be able to, where's council putting their priorities, and have they, on an overall basis at this point in time, done that? Are we fine and going forward continuing, or is there some major or tweaking that we can allow them to do? Any other? Councillor Hutchison, Debbie?
I have a question for our parks guy, but he's not here right now. He'll be back. We had a little discussion at break there, so he'll explain a couple of bumps in there, but my thought is we have a 10-year plan going forward, but I mean, every year we're going to do a budget. So every year we're going to make some decisions, and I guess at that point to decide whether we go with the plan or we go above it or below it. Is that the thinking, or is it just going to be, here's a 10-year plan and we live with it? There has to be some room for flexibility, I presume, just especially with roads and bridges. We don't know every year is a new surprise. So I presume that we're going to be able to do some adjustment as day goes by. So that's my thought, but I don't know if anybody wants to comment on that or not, but is that the way we're looking at it?
Gary?
Yeah, absolutely. The forecast is just sort of based on the lay of the land today. Here's what we see coming down the pipe. But things may last longer, they may break sooner, but these are things that, that we see coming forward in the next 10 years, and gives an appreciation for consequences of when we make a change in any given year, when it's the current budget year, the ripple effect of where those things fit in, how does it change it? So it's not to say that this is adopted and we won't vary from it at all. But if there is directions that you want us to focus attention, budget dollars on a certain area, where your comfort level is on your tax levy increase, looking for that sort of guidance, so that we're similar to how we focused on bridges and came up with a plan for bridges. So we've tweaked that a little bit based on some of the changes even this year that you've made since that, but we roll it into, having, the impact on those further years. But every given year, when it is the budget year, we'll dive deep into the details of what that year is, so that the council will know that plan. But this also shows that the consequences, and it's just, pushing it off 1 year. Okay, what does that do to the next year or 2 years from now, or what, so it just gives an appreciation for looking at it in a long-term perspective instead of just on the current year. So that's kind of part of the purpose for the forecast.
Michelle? I think
Thank
Michelle
you.
was commenting as well too. Doug?
Yeah, thank you, because I think it's really important. As we know, sometimes if we don't have the correct data or the correct information, it's hard to make decisions. So the forecast is exactly as Carrie has suggested. It's our best guess of what we see coming down the pipe. But then we need to layer on, I believe, council, we need to start looking at this strategically, and whether it's through a rec master plan, which we're hoping to undertake later this year internally, to start to look at what we have, what the future might look like, what pressures we have from growth. It will give, we hope, council the information they need to start to make some of these choices. And I've been very pleased with the discussion around the council table today. And I think this was part of our intent, to give council the opportunity to understand the competing pressures, the competing financial commitments that are going to be needed to maintain our current level of service, and also give you that background information so that as you want to consider new choices, shifts in service level, et cetera, what the implications might be related to that. And we really did take a lot of guidance from how we approach the bridge strategy and how council dealt with that. You had an opportunity to look at the evaluation matrix for technical priorities, I will call it. And as we've already seen, what fits within those priorities may shift. So whether it's Bridge 1 or Bridge 83 that moves to the priority list there, we have a matrix for evaluation of how that might look. And then we've had our treasurer been able to build a financial model for a set annual set of expenditures that will help deliver on those priorities. And if you do that over multiple sectors or departments, it'll start to give you that pressure, knowing full well that things may shift over time. But if we can be strategic about it moving forward, I think it will help our ratepayers understand the choices. It will help direct our council members as they start to set the priorities, and it will allow us to pull together those numbers and efficiencies and best options for your consideration, because we're all sort of striving towards the same outcomes.
One further question for Carrie, just so based on each year, is this forecast, do you foresee that we're looking at probably 5% each year in terms of capital increase, like based on these numbers?
Yes, like based on this, just and there's further work to be done to try to even attempt to balance this, if you will, just with time. So there's a lot of attention that needs to be placed in there, but you can see all of a sudden we're hitting a million, 1.7, 1.9. So we've got some heavy demand years, and how are we going to look at funding and financing those things? But we certainly, the only tax levy increase shown in that line is that 1% growth associated or committed for the bridges. So that 1% is all that is really increasing in that tax levy line. And then it shows, okay, we still have a shortfall. So we've got to, and what is the answer? I don't know. We need to look at things. But it does illustrate that we're coming against some big expenses, and to just borrow them for the money is, there's just, the next year is just going to be the same, and we're hitting that wall. But we want to, if we continue to borrow, we want to make sure it's strategic, that it's for that it's for one-time expenses that aren't going to be reoccurring. But we got to look at building that loan payment back in on the operating side too, because to just borrow, well, what's the, annual impact on the operating side of the cost of that borrowing? So there's a lot of work to be done to try to figure out how we're going to get there. We're just kind of looking for what should our focus be? Where should we, prioritize based on council's view of the services that we really want to focus on?
We have one question for recreation, just to bring it forward, because I did have a discussion with our parks guy here at break. If you look at 2029, 2030 under recreation, you see a bump from 460 in 2028 to 1.175, and then 2030 1.78, and then back down to 290,000. I question what that was all about, and I'll let Mike explain what those numbers are.
Yeah, through you, counselor to council here. So the The 2029 big expense is a new brine header at the Durham Marina. And then the 2030 big expense is the new arena floor at the Norman B Arena. And I do appreciate you giving me the heads up on that before. Much appreciated.
So the engineers were predicting that they can predict 5 years out that floor is going to crack and fall apart.
Well, these are based on life expectancies of the said assets. So the brine header, we are doing maintenance. We run a maintenance on it. So
Mhm.
we have tried to extend the life of that as much as we can. And the arena floor, I think it's just starting to catch up with us, and it's inevitable.
And I guess we can say that there's an arena to the north of us here, and that's why we have Junior B lacrosse in our Durham Arena this year, because they're redoing the floor on the Bay Shore, which is, I believe, newer than what the Ayton Arena is. Normally. Anyways, okay, Tom?
Mayor Eccles, and I think an important component here is which, when we landed what we're doing, but to, I think, share this 10-year forecast with the community and let the taxpayers, because they need to do the way the economy is right now out there. I think it'd be beneficial to share it and let them kind of pre-plan for what's coming up in the many years ahead. Because, this way I'm looking at it, we're going to be 10 for 10 years is essentially what I'm reading here. And I think for people to properly plan that, maybe they don't buy a new vehicle or something just because they've got to offset and they've got to prepare themselves for just the cost to live here. And we are significantly lower than a lot of our neighbors and surrounding areas. And I think, we do have a lot of work to do. And it's a fine balance between services provided or not provided. So I'm comfortable with this, but I really would like to make sure that the community is well aware of the true picture that we face as decision makers here, and to share that wholesome story and then they can properly prepare themselves. Because people, you hear that, well, another increase, but it's not so much the case. It's what we have to deal with. So that's what I'd like to see, if we could share that and let them have certain prepare them. And not only that, it softens the blow for each year as you announce your budget. So it's just more of a comment. Thank you.
Joyce? Councilor?
Thank you. The only thing, we see numbers. If we're going to share it with the citizens, they're going to see it too. Well, they're just numbers. What do those numbers represent? So I think it would be better, and I know it would probably be a lot of input, but it'd be better under those lines to see what that money represents for future years. So I think more description into that 10-year forecast with showing what the numbers represents would be beneficial.
Okay, good point. So under the police, it would be a truck this year and half of a smart car. And next year, the other half of the smart car. Or is that the car and a half, a smart car and a truck? Yeah. Okay. Anything else? I'm gonna throw one thing out there. How many capital buildings and infrastructure do we share? I don't think we've ever, since amalgamation, have never really looked at that on a continuous basis. Are we at a point where we look at who owns what and who shares what? We've gone through quite a aspect of the Saugeen Municipal Airport. In the municipalities, it started out as, I don't know, there was probably 10 or 12 municipalities into it. And now there's 3. Those 10 or 12 amalgamated down into 3. But one that's even bigger than that, there's 2 assets that we own almost a majority. Certainly one of them we own a majority, and neither one of them are in our municipality. Is it time to look at our partners and say, you're big enough to operate this now by yourself? And I'm talking about the Elmwood Fire and the Elmwood Community Center. Is it efficient? Is it effective of our resources to be at that? I don't know whether it would save us any money, but you know, right now the Elmwood Community Center operates, I believe the bookings are done through Brockman, Scott, and operates pretty much on their policies and everything. I mean, Bennington Grant couldn't kind of come to an agreement. They were neither big enough, but is Brockton not big enough to look after that? You know, looked at it and yeah, would we, for the community on community services and whatnot, be better off being in that or out of it than just pay a fee? We did go through that, Phil, with a number of fire departments. We did it quite a while ago. We were joint. And it, you know, you get to a size where you need a partner or can you operate it yourself? And I guess the biggest one would have been Grey Highlands. Grey Highland Markdale Fire Department. We stepped away from that. We purchased service from them. Complications of staying in a partnership and the lack of efficiency. You know, I mean, is that a point? Don't anybody else jump up here. It's got damn quiet. Doug.
So what you're saying is we'd be looking at basically fee for service then, if like for fire, for example, if we had fire in that area, we would, just like we do with the other fire departments, we should cover costs if they get involved. I'm not sure with the facility, I guess it's recreation or use of the hall, I guess it's. And maybe that's something the staff would look at, like in terms of other municipalities, how they do that if they're, you know, like split community, like Elmwood's a split community, right? So other areas have split communities, how they make their agreements. Maybe it's worth looking at to get your.
You know, certainly in saying that, we've done that with Mount Forest, Wellington North.
Yeah.
One would be used to, you know, there was for some of the services that were in Mount Forest, but amalgamation time it was. Yeah. That's an our municipality and you look after it. You look after it in your municipality.
And we sort of have that with Hanover, do we not? In some ways, like people.
I don't want to get into that partnership.
No, but use their recreation facilities, though I know residents get a higher priority when it comes to booking things, and we're sort of on the waiting list type thing when it comes to recreation and that. So, but yeah, maybe worth looking into.
Any other thoughts? Good.
The usage of some of our smaller halls maybe should be looked at if it's beneficial to keep or if it's just a tax burden. I think we all know which ones I'm referring to, but maybe it's just something we need to look at.
Gary?
And I think Michelle mentioned it earlier. We are hoping to do like internally, develop a recreation master plan. And that would certainly be part of it, looking at all of our current facilities. But I think Michelle's ready to chime in there.
And Cece's back with us. Yes.
Thank you. We are absolutely looking at that and understanding the importance of our halls and facilities to the community is one thing, but also understanding usage data and the cost of operations for some of these things. So I know Manager Botello is working on this, and it was our intent to come forward with some of that data outside of the budget process, just so we can start to look at this. To Councillor Hutchinson's point as well, we have done some preliminary research on even user fees and non-resident versus resident user fees, et cetera. Are there ways to look at this both for our own facilities or ones that we support, as well as how that might impact decisions related to some of those shared facilities that Mayor Eccles had mentioned?
Okay. I think part of the recreation portion of it, though, and to your point, Joyce, is the usage, but it comes back to that compliance. You know, keep all of these facilities open, you know, get into accessibility. We get, you know, what's it taking from the legislative aspect of it to keep those doors open? Right now, Doug, you're looking at the Stoddard Hall. Oh, you know, been there for, yeah, let's say a long time. Yep. It's been built and been accessed, and yeah, there's lots of great memories in there. But now all of a sudden it's, oh, no, we've got to push. That baby boomers have built it and enjoyed it. Now they can't. And what is it? 200, $400,000 for ramps and everything else in there. And what's it get to, you know, get that $75 rental out of it? And I look forward to, you know, that aspect of it. I don't think it's going to have much into this 2026 budget, other than staff investigating it. Mike coming back with, or somebody, staff coming back with a report that, you know, maybe one of the halls, like an on-call, time to really take a serious look at it for the 3 rentals a year that it has. Doug.
And also with some of those halls and whatnot too, and it'll probably be part of this recreation master plan, but opportunities for outside investment in those facilities and you know, naming rights and stuff like that when you look at what Hanover did with their arena and whatnot. But there's probably opportunities within West Gray to do some upgrades to facilities or provide revenue to help offset costs for some naming rights too. Might be, you know, another avenue, another option. So.
Doug.
Shouldn't our asset management plan give us some answers to some of these questions also? Like, that's upcoming. We're supposed to have it done, what, next year is it supposed to be finalized? So shouldn't that help us to plan some?
Yes, part of that is bringing in all of our assets. We started with the roads, bridges, water, sewer, then bringing in all the assets, determining then the next is your levels of service and then your future financing. So yeah, it's all gets built all in together as we get each piece of the puzzle. And there still is decision points along the way though. We have the data, but do you want to continue with the level of service? Do you want to change it, increase, decrease, increase because growth is demanding it, decrease because we can't afford it? There's not the usage. There's all the decision points, but that's part of what gets all built into it as well.
Further out here. So what's the time frame? Because wasn't it, when's that supposed to be done and when will we have access to that?
July 1st, 2025. Let me just get my regulation. Yeah, no, exactly. And we're the next target just- Yes, so the July 1st, 2025, we need the approved asset management plan for all infrastructure assets that builds on our plan from last year, including identification of proposed service levels, what activities will be required to meet those proposed service levels, and the strategy to fund those levels of service. 2025. Yeah.
Can't imagine anybody at Queen's Park working on July 1st, but maybe we'll get it in on the 2nd, get an extra day. Michelle.
Thank you. And I just want to reiterate sort of what Carrie had said here. Then we're going to build some of this other information. So there's the assets, and then there's, you know, what their natural lifespan is, what their level of repair is going to be. But as she indicated, then there's choices to be made as well. We are currently looking at a facility right now that, from what we can gather, has very little usage and needs some infrastructure in the way of a roof. And what is the cost? And when do you want to keep investing in that? And we will, for instance, on the recreation side, be doing an internal, hoping to start in the fall, a recreation master plan where we do some community engagement. Then we start to look at best practices. How many arenas, how many halls are the standard per capita? And where do we fit into that? And then what is the level of investment that would be required to either A, maintain what we've got, B, look at other options or different ways of doing things? And those are choices that are going to have to be made at the council table in consultation with your connections to the community and what the community is demanding and looking for. But again, who's paying the price for this? And it is our intention to continue to build this story so that you are well informed as you start to deliberate on some of these decisions.
Thank you, Michelle. Tom?
Okay, I would move that we receive the report for information purposes. I assume you want a motion for that? We did number 2. Do we do both together? Okay, I wasn't sure. That's not what I believe.
Okay, I guess.
Okay, okay.
I thought it was number
The
2.
mayor called it number 2.
Calendar.
So it's both, and that's fine. So I'll leave that be then. I withdraw that
And
one.
it was.
That's fine. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, guess that one already is done. We'll leave it at that. That's efficiency and effectiveness right there. Yeah.
So your miracles, just so that everyone watching online could hear that, my understanding was that when the first one was moved, is that that recommendation as it was written in the report was moved as a collective as opposed to splitting the questions. So if that's not what council's intent was, and it was just meant to be number 2, then certainly we can revisit that. But what I took from that was that it was the recommendation as written in the report.
All right. The next thing would be, is there any direction specific that we want the mayor and staff, when they're preparing the rest of this, going forward, to any specific change in direction from what we've heard here this morning? We need to do that by motion. Didn't we?
Through miracles to council, just for clarification purposes, because this is now a strong mayor municipality that we are all part of, any motions with respect to the proposed budget for 2026 will have to be crafted in such a way that council is requesting that the mayor consider something as part of that 2026 draft budget. So nothing earth shattering, but just reframing the way we're thinking about this. I just wanted to put that out there for council's information.
Or after the discussion, are we seemingly on the right track here? Joyce, Councillor Net.
Thank you. And through you, I'd like to make a recommendation through the strong mayor's powers with regards to implementing, even though I know you said you're going to do a road study, but I would like to start in 2026 implementing a 2-kilometer stretch of road be incorporated into the budget.
Extra 2 kilometers? Yeah, I think I'd use the word extra in that. Yeah,
In the rural, like whether it's Bentic, Glenelg, Normanby, I don't care. But outside of our predominant, Durham and Newstead, where a lot of dollars, and I understand because of growth, development and so on and so forth. I understand the need, but I also feel there is the need on our rural, rural roads of transportation in West Gray. Thank you.
okay.
Can I ask a clarification? So that you said that's in addition to the 400,000 that we have in there now, you want to, if 400,000 is 2 kilometers, I don't know.
400,000, that's there is. The 400,000 that's in there is proposed for surface treatment,
And that you.
where you're asking for an additional 2 kilometers on top of
Yes.
that,
For clarification, in addition,
400 would get 2 kilometers.
plus or minus, yes, but she's asking for an
So we're asking
addition.
for that in addition, just
Yeah.
to be clear. That's all.
Yep.
So Three Miracles, and to Councillor Nin, correct me if I haven't stated this properly, but that in consideration of staff report 10-year capital forecast, council requests that the mayor considers incorporating the rehabilitation of an additional 2 kilometers of rural roads in the 2026 draft budget.
Councillor Hutchison. Doug?
Just thoughts on that is, so that's basically going to add another 3% to our budget. So now that we would be looking at 12% to start when we get into negotiating where we're going with it.
Yes, and or it might mean other actions or could mean cuts in other spots to be able to find that for you. Yeah. Okay. All right, gonna call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, let's see what we could do with that. All right, anything else? Happy? Sun shining? Okay. Then if that is all, questions? Everything on the agenda is completed. You had to jump in. All right, the last part on the agenda is the confirming bylaw for today's actions. I have a mover for that. Scott, thank you. Doug Hutchison. Motion to move the confirming bylaw for the council meeting of today. Any questions on the motion? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, staff. Some tough questions. And look forward to working over the summer. Putting the budget together instead of playing golf a lot of the time. Tough. Maybe we can find that, how to sink a hole in one while we're doing it. Okay. Everything completed on the budget, then we'll declare